Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Hope Health Communication. We are two Black moms, researchers, and hope seekers who come together to bring you real talk, trusted resources, and community wisdom. And I'm Rasheeta.
Hi, I'm Rochelle, and we know that raising a family takes a village. We are here to be a part of yours. We want to share hopeful messages, expert insights, and tools you need for family wellness, growth, and joy. And so today, for our community wisdom, we have two wonderful young men who are joining us, and we'd like for them to introduce themselves. You can start with Ryan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Ryan, and I am a current master's student at George Mason University, and I'm also a family service worker for Spotsylvania County. And most of my job duties entail establishing safety, permanency, and health for families in Spotsylvania.
All right. We'll turn it over to Elijah to introduce himself.
Hey everybody! Again, thanks for having me. I did watch you guys' podcast, and I love the intro of your last guest speaker there. How she said she's a Black woman and she's educated, she's powerful, she loves the Lord. So it was a really good podcast just to put that out there, and it was some good information that you guys shared. I'm Elijah Hamilton. I'm an occupational therapist. I received my doctorate degree a couple of years ago. I am a school-based occupational therapist. I spent most of my time working with peds. I do have some experience in skilled nursing. That's where I initially started working in OT, and I have been practicing for the past 10 years. Also, I am trying to start a business in photography. I've been picking up some skills there, so hopefully that will launch this summer. I have some friends that's been working on that part of the business for me, and other ventures in my head I want to explore, but I'm glad to be here.
Awesome.
We all have our multiple things we're doing. Like we have our day job, and then we have our other jobs, like our hustles on the side. So I feel you on that. And for full disclosure, Elijah is my nephew, and so we're gonna jump right into things. And thank you. I call him Eli, sorry for short, but for this one, I'll try to be formal. Elijah, thank you for that compliment of the podcast. We are just getting started with our podcast as we have a few episodes up. So if you haven't seen those, please go check them out. But honestly, we feel like the community is the expert. A lot of people, they're grappling for engagement with celebrities, but I think the community has a level of celebrity themselves because they're the experts of health in the community. And so just know that you are a celebrity too. And that's why you have been invited, because we know you have a lot of expertise that we want everyone to hear about. So I'll start out with the first question and ask, what are the most pressing concerns for Black young men today, in your opinion? And we can start with Ryan.
Yeah. So I would personally say the pressing concerns of Black young men are just kind of trying to establish their own sense of safety and well-being in this new day and age, with everything happening with jobs and job security, with the administration, things getting slashed and programs getting defunded. I feel like Black men and right now feel exceptionally vulnerable in this kind of area, especially for people of my age. Being fully transparent, I am 25 years old, so this is the first time I'm starting out my first official job. I'm getting ready to graduate with my master's. I am trying to navigate the field of public health. There are so many things that are changing within this dynamic, and it, with the added pressures of everything happening internationally with our internally, nationally with our administration, and things happening internationally, it just adds a sense of insecurity in my future and my stability, and how I'm going to grow my family, my plans are going to change for my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan, if I even want a family at this point, because there's so much instability right now. I feel like there's so much happening and it's hard for Black men to process entirely.
Man, that's powerful.
Mhm.
I would want to see if Eli, do you have something to add to that? I
Yeah,
saw you nodding, so
yeah, I definitely want to piggyback on what Ryan said. And my thing was security too, like security on our jobs, security with relationships with people here. I've been questioning, the relationships of people that you would think in your circle and the people that you think you can trust on your job and everyday day life. Like, who can we turn to? Who can we trust? Who we can converse and be vulnerable with in this day and time, and how things are changing. And then just being a Black male in the area that I'm working in, which I don't see a lot of people who look like me in the profession of occupational therapy. So like, I would like our perspective on how do we navigate work, how do you maintain those relationships, how can you build a trusting community that you can be vulnerable with. And again, I'm 30 going on 38, and I'm with you, brother. Do not have any kids, do not know if I want to have kids in this day and age too, because we don't know how the world is going to turn to, and what things are going to change, and how can you raise a family in this day and age. So definitely security is something is pressing.
well, Rochelle, I'm not gonna take it over because you know me, but when you said vulnerability, I
Mm.
think there's a misperception that Black men aren't vulnerable or
Mm.
don't make themselves don't don't desire to have a level of vulnerability, or they find that to be a weakness. I kind of want to touch on that, and I don't know. I'm kind of shooting off the hip here, so I don't know if I have a question formulated. But Rochelle, you're nodding, so I think you were gonna
Yeah,
kind of go right in on that.
I'm with you. I mean, just off the bat, y'all came out with the vulnerability, right? You came out and said, look, I mean, insecurity is a big issue, job
Mm,
security, but also relational security. And I think there is not, maybe people might know about the way that a lot of men are socialized to perceive their role in relationships as provider and the one that is supposed to bring the security. But you both kind of, and not that we're subscribing to that, we're talking about what we're socialized to think that is our roles, right? And both of you already started out by discussing like that's something that's being challenged because of the current societal sort of challenges that we're facing right now, which is a very vulnerable statement. And I, just kind of piggybacking off what Rasheeta is alluding to, of just this idea that men, especially Black men, don't need spaces to be vulnerable. What does that feel like? Like just the feeling of that for you both to just share that in such an open forum. It's not something that I think my father's generation, even if they felt it, would have been able to express it so openly and beautifully as you both did. So, what does that feel like to even say? And what's the process that you've had to go through to share that vulnerability so openly?
I think for me, I think I got a little bit fortunate just because, like, as I got older, I started to have real open and honest conversations with my dad about vulnerability and like what it means for a Black man to be vulnerable and how to show vulnerable and like still appear strong. And I still think that that's some of that generational trauma that comes into play a
mm,
little bit. But I think for me, I've just been trying my hardest to be a better advocate for not only myself but for my community. So even though it might be tough, like I'm still happy and proud to do it just because I want to set the example for other young Black men out there to say like, hey, it's okay, feel your feelings, talk it out, and like how do we move forward from there afterwards.
mm,
Wow.
I think just growing up, like it's haven't always been an opportunity to share. Like growing up in an authoritative parent and lifestyle in a Black community, it's like do as I say, and we don't have the ability to share. And I'm always been the person who wants to talk things out, or wonder why things are happening or why I'm being punished or how is this relationship not mended. I always ask questions, and I always had my mom I can go to. She actually said one particular time that I did like question my parents, and got really upset about it because I was at a point that I could feel like I couldn't share. And she came after me and she's like, I don't want you to ever feel like there's not a way that you can express yourself to me. And that sticks with me. And every Mother's Day at my church, they ask us to say something about our moms. And I always share that. It's like she gave me an opportunity to have a voice. And regardless if I'm in trouble or not, like you can explain to me, you can love me, you can correct me, because there's a difference than discipline and then punishment. So like if you're correcting me and explaining things why, there's a way that I could learn and be a better person. And then I'm not holding anything in or having a grudge against the relationship that I have with my parents or relationship with others, because that it starts from the home. So me having a trust in spirit that I can speak to my parents openly, I can do that with other relationships as well. So I try to be open with my friendships that I have, and like I want to feel secure in those relationships with the people I'm with. So I give people the opportunity to show themselves that I could trust them and they could trust me when being vulnerable in those areas.
Wow. I don't know about you, Rasheeta, but I feel hope right now. So let me tell y'all why. Rasheeta knows why, but I'm a mother of two boys, right? So I have two boys, 13 and 15. And Rasheeta's a mother of boys too, right? We have boys and a girl. But I think as a mom, I don't know what's landing and what's not landing when it comes to my sons. And I try to say the same things that your mom has said to you, Elijah. And I know my husband, their father, says the similar things that your father said to you, Ryan. So it gives me a lot of hope to know that, like, it might land.
Something stinks. Every now and then, something stinks.
I will say it takes time. But
Yeah.
I would say it probably didn't land for me until I turned 21.
Well, listen, at least it landed. You know, I can wait. I can be patient. But you know, especially when you know it'll settle in, right? If you're, and a lot of parents tell us that, right? We hear like, just be persistent, be consistent. Tell your kids, you know, that you are their safe place. And you know, Elijah, we just celebrated Mother's Day, and you know, thinking about that being the one thing that you continuously celebrate about your mom, giving you that strength to be open and to be vulnerable. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I would also just out of curiosity, I wonder what doesn't land with you guys. Like, have there been instances or things that you can recall that completely turned you off and may have hindered your ability to be vulnerable or engage in relationship, and even if it were with your parents?
I love that.
There definitely has been. Let me see if I can think of something.
Mhm.
Something. I mean, I grew up in a household where children were seen, not heard,
Mhm.
and even sometimes now I kind of feel that way. I am the youngest. I'm of my entire family, so like I still get treated like a child from time to time. And I think something that doesn't land for me is still, and I've always struggled with this. Like, it's always do as I say, even in the ripe age of 25. And granted, my mom, like 100% hands down, 9 times out of 10, if she tells me to do something, I'll probably do it. But
Mhm.
like, I feel like I'm old enough now to where I want a little bit of an explanation for certain things. If it's like kind of an out of the box ask, like
Mhm.
sometimes I feel, and this is where sometimes I feel like communication like lapse between from parent to child, is
Mhm.
that you will always be my parent, yes.
Mhm.
But like how can you be my parent and still show me that I am an adult?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that misses a lot. And
Yeah.
sometimes I struggle with the dynamic, my parents struggle with the dynamic. Like I what doesn't land is that no matter what, I should just do what they say.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
fortunately I'm just not about that.
Okay. How about you, Eli? You can be honest. I won't tell your daddy. Your dad is my brother.
They can watch. I'm grown, got my house
You
up
grown
now.
now. You live on your own. In your own house now.
But as a child, I'm a middle child. So my sister has Down syndrome, so I'm sharing that. So a lot of attention went to her. And my brother's the oldest child. And I always feel like I had to manage everything and be good at everything. So like there was not a lot of a lot of tension to come to me. And so when I like have a problem or want to address something, I remember a time that my parents, not so much my parents, my dad, like I took away my voice, like you wasn't listening to me. I was being ungrateful in that moment, but I just want to be heard. And regardless if I was wrong or not, I just want you to listen to me. And you can punish me, you can take away things, I can be in trouble, but at least I want to know why. And then that's how I kind of treat my kids when I'm working with them. I'm very open with them. I like to share. I was like, if your teachers are not listening to you, you always have a safe space with me. I don't care where I'm at on this campus. If you need to come speak to Mr. Eli, then you come speak to Mr. Eli, and I will advocate for you. I am here for you, and I want you to be comfortable to express yourself with me. So just this sometimes when I felt like my voice wasn't heard or that I couldn't use it, then I felt like I'm powerless because no one is listening.
Wow.
Those
When
are,
did you find your voice, Eli? Just to continue that.
So, like, I always had a good relationship with my parents. My dad is an associate pastor, and I believe like his relationship with God and the relationship with his father got better after my granddad did pass away. But they mended a relationship there, and I believe the relationship that he may have long with his father kind of changed how his attitude, how he expressed himself to his children. I was telling an actual friend today, I was like, my dad hugs me every time I see him. He tells me he loves me. And growing up, like I knew my dad loved me. I knew my dad is a worker. He provided for me. But the nurturing side and the loving side that I think I needed then is what I have now. So like, I think I was able to express myself too when going to school. I did a hybrid program to Barry University, which I lived home with my parents and drove every other weekend down to Miami to go to OT school. And then there was sometimes I was taking my exams that my dad will drive with me. He will drive so I will be able to study. And I was like, we have 5 hours going back and forth in a car. So we have to talk. We have to do something. It just can't be a quiet ride. And that time we really was able to just gain a better relationship and understanding with one another. But like every time now, both parents, we're loving, we're hugging on each other, and then they're expressing that that they love me. And so I feel like I could be able to express myself. And that was like 2015. I was in OT school. So
no, I have to chime in because so that's the father that we his dad and I are siblings, half siblings by our dad. And I grew up in the home with my dad. So I always had him in the home, but my brother did not grow up in the home with us. And they didn't establish a relationship until later in life. And so I think I tease him all the time. I was like, you wrote this 20-page letter to daddy. But that was he like wrote like all of how he felt about them not having a relationship and how he was resentful because he's like my sister was not his my dad's biological child, but she grew up in the home with him because my dad was married to her mom. So he would see her being raised by my dad and be resentful. It's like, why are you not raising me? I'm your actual child, you know? So we had a whole lot of conversations about that. But like Eli said, I'm very grateful that they mended their relationship. And literally in my dad's last days, like he spent the most time with my dad.
Wow. Wow. Thanks for that context, Rasheeta, and sharing that because I think a lot of families can resonate with that, right? Where the parent to child relationship of your parents, right? How much that impacts you and them. And when you learn what they went through with their parent, and you see how they might be trying to make adjustments, or even despite themselves, they end up repeating some stuff that they shouldn't repeat, right? But it's so important for us to have that context. And I think sometimes um, in certain cultures, they don't want to share a lot about the family context.
Mm-hmm.
And you just shared so openly about, he didn't grow up with our dad, but they were able to mend it. And there's the stigma of those kind of things, right? I think hurts us. The reality is it is what it is, and we navigate through it. And there's much more healing and hope and sharing how we navigate those challenges. But a lot of times there's so much shame and stigma attached to, when homes don't look as neat as we think they should. And
Exactly.
honestly, I don't know any family that is a story, is a Disney movie. It's all challenging. The Disney movies is jacked up. Yes,
I was gonna say, they have a couple villains in there too, right?
exactly. So, I mean, but at
The happy ending. Well, I will say it was a happy ending. It was a happy ending because I believe that it shows that there is hope in mending those relationships. That it was a significant amount of time before they really had a true and genuine relationship, but at the end it was. And so I think that completion in their relationship helped to complete him emotionally. And he was then able to give that to his children in a more holistic way. Like he said, he always been a provider. He was always a hard worker. All the things that, like you said, we're socialized to believe that we needed to be, but we're not always men, and you guys can kind of chime in on this. Men aren't always socialized to feel as if they are to be there for their children emotionally, because they're not the emotional ones. That's your mama. So how do you reconcile that? And I think, Elijah, you really spoke to it, was that now he hugging me and we expressed that. And is that something that you now appreciate? Is that something you want to see demonstrated or modeled by your fathers?
Yeah, I think everyone has the opportunity to learn, and you have to go through those experiences to know how to do better. And so you have examples, good or bad, and you look at those and you just make better decisions for yourself. And sometimes I reflect too, and I just can't put that on my parents. I can hug my parents as much as I want to. It's not them hugging me. I can run up to my mom and dad and just hug them. It's not their responsibility just to love me. Maybe they need to be loved too. So I can show them love just like they are showing it to me. But I reflect that every time I see my cousins, my Rasheeta, everybody, I was hugging them more than I actually was hugging my own parents. And then so I have to reflect too. It's like, hey, your mom's there, your dad's living, they're healthy. You need to show them love too. So this whole time, I try to. I don't like to point the finger. I like reflect, what is happening? Why are they demonstrating those behaviors? Why am I acting the way I'm acting? How are we learning, and how are we making those adjustments? So
wow. So you all know that there's mental health challenges that have been increasing among Black men, and Mr. Eli, as your students call you, you probably see this even with your students. And Ryan, in your work, you may come across this as well. Can you tell us more about your perceptions or experiences on why there seems to be a increasing crisis when it comes to mental health and young Black men?
I can start. I think for what I'm noticing, I think it's like a lack of conversations happening in the home. I do think that social media is a prevalence of it. I don't think that social media should be blamed for everything, like how the media depicts it. But I do think that on social media, um, when you're in high school or middle school, you're looking up to all these influencers who look a certain way, and it tells young children that they need to look a certain way. And if they don't look a certain way, then they're not going to be good enough. They're not going to be great enough. They're never going to amount to anything. And I think that kind of like plays into the role and their cognitive development. Like it hinders them from truly believing in themselves because they now have this image that they're striving towards that based on your body, your physique, your lifestyle, your livelihood, your genetics, like you may not see that, if you know what I mean. So I think that their mental health is starting to struggle because there aren't a lot of conversations happening in the home. And I think that's where it starts. Children need to have conversations in their home with their parents where they feel safe, where they feel trusted, where they feel like they can be open and honest. But also their parents need to be able to hear them and not just say that like, oh, you'll grow out of it. And I think that's something that stops a lot of kids from opening up because they open up to their parents one time and their parent says, oh, this is just a phase, you'll get past it. Like the grass is always greener on the other side. Like how that may be true, you have to get them to that point. And I think that's where a lot of it stops. So then they just wallow in their own self and then it just kind of declines from there.
Yeah, I agree totally what Ryan just said. Like the lack of communication, like you can you have to help them navigate. If I'm going to be open to tell you and be vulnerable about you and just blowing it off and say you'll grow out of it, like there's no way. And if I can't turn to my parents, then who, or someone that I really trust, then who can I turn to? So lack of communication definitely can hinder, different can hinder our mental health. And also, I think just as a culture and how things have been going, I don't think we are too trusting to be open to people to open up. So we're not seeking the resources that when we need them because we don't want to be vulnerable with other people. We don't want to know, we don't want to get to the point where people are sharing our business. So we don't open up. And so if we don't open up, we can't have the help that we need because we want to keep everything inside.
Or feeling like they may use it against you in some way, maybe. Right. So like if you feel as if, and we know historically that there's been a lot of mistrust in the medical sector, rightfully so, right? We haven't always had the most just and, transparent ways of how the medical space has treated Black people. And we still have a ways to go, right? So I can definitely understand that. And I think to that point, not just in the context of mental health, but how do you both feel that Black young men tend to take care of their health, or do they at all? Like, are there gaps in certain aspects of you feeling like you can take care of yourself in the context of health? And I don't want to lead you, but I'll give you an example. Like I know a lot of times, because this happened to me, right? When you finish college or when you turn 26, you roll off of your parents' insurance. So Ryan, to your point, you're like, well, my 5-year plan has changed. My 10-year plan has changed because of things that's happening. And a lot of times insurance is connected to occupation, whether you have it or not. So things like that, like have there been any barriers in your lives that have kind of hindered your ability to really feel like you've been able to address your health in a way that was optimal or quality, or you just had to wing it and piece things together until you could get some insurance, etc. So want to hear more about that.
I mean, I just think in the time that I'm growing up, mental health was not a thing. Like, it was not something that us as a culture we were going to seek help for any mental illness or anything that we're doing to maintain or increase our mental health. I know for me personally, I know it's just a sport, but it's not just a sport to me. I play volleyball very avidly and I take it very serious, not just because I love the game and I leave everything out on that court. If I'm feeling some type of aggression, it doesn't matter how hard I hit the ball, someone's going to be on the other side and they're not complaining how hard I hit the ball or you're aiming it this way. Like, that clears my mind. I tell people, do not schedule me for things after 1 p.m. on Sunday. That's when I play. I'm busy during this time. And my parents and everybody in my
Everybody know.
do
Everybody
not
know.
do not bother. And this is where he goes to get his peace. And I can, and I call it my happy place to be on the court, and which I can just allude to with my cousin Monique. She talks about her happy place, and then that's where I find peace. I find people that I can talk to, that I can share with, that I trust out there on that volleyball court. And if I just want to escape reality, everything just moves when I'm out there. So like I have my safe zone when I'm out there on the court.
I like that.
So piggybacking off of that a little bit, I also play volleyball. Shameless
What
but
is it with volleyball? Maybe I need to get on the team.
yeah. I think for me, when I was growing up, like I think mental health was just starting to become a thing, but it was like everyone is still trying to navigate it and understand it. And I personally just didn't. I think I was fortunate enough to find spaces outside of my home where I could like talk to people and tell them how I was feeling, and like the people I were talking to were like my orchestra director, my English teacher, and they would always tell me go talk to the counselor, go talk to my parents, but like that just like wasn't a thing for me. I don't think, and especially like back then, mental health wasn't as widely covered under insurances. So I think insurance coverage is now a big help under the mental health services now that it's covered under some insurances, so copays aren't as high as they were when I was growing up. But I think it goes back to kind of the conversational piece. Like I didn't have that kind of relationship with my parents or that kind of safety net where I could talk to them about like, hey, I'm not feeling a certain way. And like now, like I kind of have the gym. I don't play volleyball as much as I would like to. I have the gym. I have bowling, something else I do with some of my friends. Uh, I like play video games in my spare time if I find the time. But I think there are just kind of other avenues and safety nets that I've been able to navigate. Sometimes it's a rant session with one of my friends, but I think that's why it was like that's why I think mental health was such a barrier when I was growing up. Parents
Well,
were a thing, and there wasn't really a real safety net.
I think to your point, Ryan, it sounds like you guys have found some coping mechanisms to incorporate into your lives in order to de-stress or kind of recenter. And so you mentioned volleyball when you can, the gym, video games. Because I know Eli pretty personally, I know like when I'm home, they get together, him and his mom, dad, and brother, and play spades all the time. Like,
Ooh, now we're talking.
yeah, there's the spades. So I go watch, and it's really fun. It's really a great social time together, even though the game is competitive and they talk trash and all that good stuff. Like we know we do it at the barbecues and all that. And then also you travel a lot, Elijah. That's one of the things. Like this, we're here on a trip every couple of months.
I love that. I love that about y'all. Like, I mean, we're similar ages at large, but I would say my cousins that are still in their 30s, they are out. It don't take nothing for them to book a flight, and it don't matter. They will find the cheap flights. They will find the hookups. They are out. Like they're not trying to discuss nothing. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier too, though. Like starting a family, right? A lot of people are waiting to have kids and would prefer to travel or do something else that feels sustainable and maybe not such a deep commitment.
Right.
And I wonder if that's connected to what Rasheeta is talking about, with this sort of how you take care of yourself. It almost seems like taking care of your health looks so different for millennials and the next group after that. Not alphas, but
Gen Z.
Gen Z, right? Because Ryan, are you Gen Z?
I mix up the alphabet, so
Yeah.
don't ask me.
Exactly.
I can't keep up. I can't keep up with it.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, like I think there's just a shift in what healthy looks like. right?
Mhm.
And it's like, one, mental health is not that stigmatized for Gen Z and Alpha. I mean, my older son will easily tell people like, yeah, I go to my therapist. He had a therapist crew at lunchtime one time, like with just the boys that all had therapists. And his teacher called me. She was like, this was amazing to watch. Like, just four boys talking about the benefit of therapy. They were like 11 years old, right? So I definitely think it has gone through such a destigmatization. But I think even beyond mental health, like as Rasheeta was saying, like just in general, physical health, like, Elijah, if you're playing volleyball every weekend, that is so good for your heart, right? It's so good for, and we think about heart disease in Black men, right? And all these sort of things that our communities face and Black men face, but the physical fitness that I see young men really committed to, we're not seeing the expected, you know, pot belly, not to shame anybody, but like that was a norm for our dads, right? And that's just a part of life. But I feel like young men of today are really intense about keeping their physical fitness. Now, I don't know if it is connected to, well, I'm sure it's connected to health, but I wonder too, Ryan, when you mentioned just like watching on social media and trying to keep up, is there some sort of social pressure when it comes to men and their physique? And it seems like it's
And
good, but
appearance
is
in
there like
general, just appearance in general.
an
I would
appearance in
say
general?
100%.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's mental pressures. And I think that also kind of like plays into what Elijah was talking about with like relationships. People typically don't want the guy with the beer belly. They want the guy with the six pack. So I feel like a lot of guys are in the gym now. Like part of it, I'm not gonna lie, is probably for their mental health. It's a great stress reliever. It's a great stress
Right.
reliever. I will say like people of color, me, Black men, me and my other Black male friends that go to the gym, like a lot of us are thinking about some of our family histories and the health,
Right.
trying to make sure that we're mitigating that. And the other part of it is like some guys are trying to start a family and they're trying to make sure that they're in their best physique to get the rewards. And the rewards look differently for other people,
Mm.
to say the least. And some of those rewards are other people.
Yeah.
Right. I hear you.
How the way you put that?
I love
Anything
it.
to add to that, Elijah? I just want to put it out there. No?
No, I'm
Okay.
totally agreeing with that. I'm getting closer to the age where I want to be healthy, and I
Mm.
like to look good as well, but I am not over there trying to impress people on the internet. As long as I feel good and I'm presenting out there and I'm okay, and if I'm healthy too, because I'm a person, I love food. I love to experience, love all sorts of food, but I want to make sure that I'm still healthy and that I can enjoy what I want to eat instead of being hindered and have to think about what I can and what I cannot eat. If I take care of myself, and then I'll be able to enjoy everything that is out there for me to consume. So,
I don't have to be counting calories like some of us,
Right.
huh? Really, I wanted to kind of shift. I don't know if this is a total shift, but just wanted to ask, like, what are some of the main misperceptions that people might have about Black young men? Because we know, obviously, that there are some that are portrayed in different media. The narrative can be quite negative about Black men, and so I think we would be remiss to not kind of talk about some of those misperceptions and then how you guys kind of feel about those and how you've navigated some of those myths, or if you've come up against people who have directly projected those onto you and how you handled that.
I can just say I think the world may view us, and this is just my thoughts. Sometimes Black men are inadequate, and
Mm-hmm.
so like in the spaces in their work field with raising a family, like oh, what do he has to bring to the table? And I like that Ryan has his braids, my brother has dreads, and he's representing and he's getting his education. And my brother has a master's degree and he's an educator too. Kids will look like Ryan. Kids will look like my brother. Kids will look like me. And representation is so important. And so sometimes I feel like the world sees as inadequate, but I'm stepping up so to know that I can do everything. I want to be not just I wouldn't say the smartest in the room, but I want to have a degree that I know what I'm talking about in my field. I know how to maintain relationships. I know how to look someone in the eyes when I'm speaking. I know how to speak eloquently if I need to. I just want to be in a space that when you see me, don't project anything on me. I know who I am, and I know I'm adequate enough to do any position that I'm called to do. So,
come on, you did say your daddy was a preacher, right?
yes.
Because that was a whole. I mean, listen,
That was a sermon right there, a sermonette,
Amen.
sermonette.
And Ryan, you have your family has. There's some ministers in your family too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So,
how does? But I mean, I just brought that in because I just remembered that. But you know, as just responding to Rasheeta's question, how do you face some of these stereotypes, and you know, what keeps you motivated to be who you are despite how people may project negative, you know, stereotypes onto you?
I think so. The stereotype I feel like I've experienced most is that I'm scary for who I am, for my stature, for my size, for the way that I look. You know, the beard, the hair. You know, we all present differently. And I will say that I have a very unorthodox way of approaching it. I personally am on the terms of meeting people where they're at and then showing them that I am more than what you think I am. Like, I am all about, like, this might be what you think of me. And then as soon as I can be the riffraff that people think that I am, but I also am an educated man. I take pride in my bachelor's degree. I take pride in my master's degree. I take pride in my job. I take pride in helping out and helping the families that I'm able to work with, you know. But I think for me, it's just more so just like showing them that, like, just because you see this on TV doesn't mean that this is how we act 100% of the time. This is not who we are. This is not what we're about. Like, we all have our misconceptions in our families. You have them, I have them, they have them. Like, it's gonna exist. I'm not saying that not. I am the type of person where it's like, yes, these exist, but that's not me. So let me show you who I am. And after I show you who I am, and you still think that I'm that, like, I'm okay with being that.
to
But
you,
yeah,
you're okay with being that to them if that's
yeah,
their perception, and
yeah.
you're not. It's not on you to change their perception, right?
No,
You're just demonstrating who you are as a person, and we know even in life, some people gonna like you, some people not gonna like you, regardless.
yeah,
You can give them $1,000,000 and they still find something wrong with you.
yeah.
So,
Right.
So I just like to show up in my full authentic self, and that's how I handle kind of the misconceptions. And like you said, Rasheeta, it lands well with some people, it lands not so well with other people. And I've just decided that, like, for my own mental capacity, like, it's not my job to think about that. It's not my job to worry about it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a healthy approach. I think both of you have such really clear sense of self and healthy approaches to facing a world that a lot of times looks at you as inadequate and as a threat. And I mean, that's just a really difficult way to live life. And I know as a mom of Black boys, I'm always concerned about what those perceptions are doing to my boy's psyche. So if you guys can take us back to adolescence, right? Which is one of the most difficult times of life. And there was a recent Netflix series about adolescence. Um, and it doesn't really depict the challenges of Black men, right? But or Black young men, but there are some elements in there around masculinity, and you know, whether you call it toxic masculinity or hyper masculinity or harmful ideas. How did you navigate those things that people want to put onto you like a Black man? Like, so you guys are very like self-assured now, but what was the journey like, especially during adolescence when there's so much pressure to perform what people think you should be?
Mm.
I think for me, when it was a lot of adolescence, it was a lot of copying, a lot of like trying to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be, and falling in with the wrong crowd, and then realizing that like that may not be the exact crowd for me, and it was rough. It was a long journey.
Mm.
Like I envy middle schoolers today because some of the stuff that they're going through makes me think that I had it easy in middle school.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like I remember it being such a mental turmoil of truly trying to understand, and then having those conversations of that, like I couldn't do everything that my friend Bob was doing just because of the way that the world perceived me and the way that the world perceived him. And
Mm.
like I think those are some of the hardest conversations to have, just because like as an 11-12 year old, I didn't understand entirely what they were saying to me. They were saying all this stuff, and like you learn a little bit about slavery, you learn a little bit about racism, but you don't truly understand it until it happens. So I think for me, like throughout my like quote unquote adolescence, depending on what age range you're thinking of, like the middle school time frame, it was very, very confused. I was so confused. And I think it wasn't until high school when I actually experienced racism where all those lessons finally like clicked. And that's when I was able
Mm.
to understand like this is who I need to be. This is where I need to go, so that I'm staying true to myself. I'm staying true to my family. I'm not letting my family down. I'm making sure that I'm respecting my family's name, but
Mm.
also that I'm becoming my own person that the world won't necessarily fear just
Mm.
because of the color of my skin.
Wow.
Wow.
I just feel like I was grateful to have an older brother to kind of help me navigate middle school
Mhm.
age. And my brother was a fighter. And he didn't play about me. Even though we will fight, he will make sure that I'm protected. And not only he protected me divinely, I think I was protected because once you get into the middle school, you start to take different classes than the other people. You'll know who is really serious about their education and who is what paths are we going. So the people that I felt that was bothering me or picking on me, our lives start to change. And so
Mm.
my circle will change and I don't have to be in the same area where those people that were not participating in class, who were doing things that they're not supposed to. It's just there was a separation. And so I feel like I was just protected if I needed to be protected physically, but divinely protected as well.
No, I
Wow.
really like that a lot because I think the other thing, just to add some context, is that we grew up in a very small town, and a lot of the people there we're related to. So I think in that divine protection, we had a lot of family that was kind of that we had as a component of our safety net that we grew up with throughout our matriculation in school. So I think that probably was helpful to me, and I'm assuming probably to you too, Eli, because you already had like built-in friends. You had your brother, you had cousins who were growing up with you in school. So if the other people didn't like you, you already had a real strong
Good.
group of friends that you could go out with, hang with.
Mhm.
Like I never felt like I needed somebody else because I had my cousins. Like I didn't have to have another friend network because it was so many of us. So
Mhm. That
um,
is a healthy thing, right? Growing up with a village.
yeah.
Um, just to ask about that, I mean, you both kind of talked about the next generation. Um, what are some of the recommendations for young boys today who
Mhm.
may not have the village that you had, Elijah, or who may, Ryan, you learned your way through, right? But what are some of the lessons? What are some of the, recommendations for adolescent boys, like from middle school to high school for Black boys?
I would say just be true to yourself. Like you can't live up to the expectations of somebody else. Worry about yourself. Do the things that you enjoy, whether that's football, basketball, or cheerleading. Like if you enjoy it, do it, because if you're proud of yourself, you'll find your circle who will also be proud of you and enjoy the things that you enjoy.
I definitely agree. Find like-minded individuals, and that's just not for young boys. That's for adults too. Like I say, my friend circles are encouraging. My friend circle are making goals. My friend circles are always trying to be better people. And so like for young people, find someone that's on the same path as you that you can learn from, and then they can learn from you as well. And so like the areas that we feel like they were weak in, then we have our partner or our circle that will plug in that hole that you have there and make you a little bit stronger. So find someone that you definitely can speak to. And it may not be an adult at that moment, because maybe you cannot share that, or you may not feel that you are heard by speaking to an adult, and you just may have one trusted friend that may have a resource to someone else that can pour into them. And what I can say to you guys may not be the same as I can share to an adolescent. Everyone has their circle that they can speak to and be heard from. So like my circle may not listen to Dr. Rochelle as or Dr. Rasheeta or Ryan. Everyone has their circle that they can influence to. So just hopefully they can find their home base or their community that they can be vulnerable with, and then hopefully have some strength through your circle.
Yeah, I love that. You know, the theme of community, finding your people by being yourself. I think, you know, what you're both saying is just profound and affirming. Um, we are close to the end, and I have a question that is burning on my heart because of social media. So right now on social media, we see a lot of like gender wars. You know, black women speaking poorly against black men speaking poorly against black women, a lot of broad generalizations, people misrepresenting us, speaking for us, right? Are you guys familiar with any of this? I know I think I've mentioned, we talked to Ryan about this before. But like, what is it that you would say to um, black women that are your age that is a misperception or a misunderstanding about what black men are going through, just with your own experience, and maybe just, you know, thinking about the friends that you have? What are something that you want to say specifically to black women about the black male experience?
I make sure my black female circle, any circle that I am, I'm always encouraging. Like I don't like negativity in my area, and I don't like people bringing negativity into my friend group. I always speak life into my friends. I always pray for my friends. I always tell them they're the head, not the tail. No one can tell you where you are in life. You just have to believe and trust that in yourself. So I tell my friends, that's like, girl, you got to go on. You look good today. You are smart. You're beautiful. You know, whatever you want to do in life, I encourage them to do that in any way that I can help and navigate. Because once you find a friend, like people has aspirations to do things, but people need resources and people need help. And so, like you
Mhm.
affirming your black women that I'm here if you need it. Like let me know you are protected, you are loved, even if you just friends or acquaintances. Someone out there love you. I love you, and just affirm them and just be a resource for them.
Awesome.
I think for me, I 100% agree with everything Elijah said, but I think for me, it's just I try to remind them that I have kind of the same fears and insecurities as they do, and that, like what Elijah said, he loves them, I love them. Like you will always find a confidant in me, no matter what. Like, and there we always have conversations about like how like I'll show up tenfold for my best friend, and then I'll put myself on back burner, and it's kind of this like we try to constantly remind each other of that, like making sure that we're making time for ourselves, but I just always try to make sure that they are aware that like, yo, I'm here. I'm going to be your voice. Like, I can help you, you can help me,
Mm-hmm.
like, just to make sure that everyone's aware that we're a pair in this kind
Mm-hmm.
of the world.
Mm-hmm. I love that. The community, the protection, the support for one another. I definitely do think that some of these social media trends are just for clickbait. But in reality, I think I've experienced Black men who are more similar to you than what the negative portrayals try to act like is the norm. I would say that you all are representing the norm of young Black men today, and that gives me a lot of great hope for to see you all thriving and really being steadfast in your identity and also the commitment that you have to the community.
Exactly. So with that, Rochelle just gave the hope. I didn't even have to ask her what the hope was. She just so clearly summarized that. And so we are extremely excited about the fact that you all joined us today, and we hope to keep up with your progress as you move along your journey. And at some point, hope to have you back, you all, as we get it out there. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you out there in the audience will join us again for another episode of Health Communication. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.